Hello, everyone. Welcome to Monster 911 Breaking News. I've had so many of you reach out within literally 24 hours to me that I could not let this story slide. There was some air of mystery to it, and so I decided to do a very impromptu breaking news show here regarding a young lady that was a mother that was attacked in Blanco, Oklahoma, and which is about 13.6 miles south of McAllister. I do have an interview that I did with kind of a semi-local source regarding this. There's one down there right now on the scene investigating for me. If I can, I'm going to try to get down there this week. But I wanted to bring you the story, if many of you have not heard, obviously many of you are not from Oklahoma that watch the show, but I wanted to bring it to you and let you hear it from the local news station and what I think is going on. So I'm just going to read the story to you that was sent to me by one of my subscribers. And here it is here. So this story broke, this story on the news, the local news, was April 3rd, 2026. It says, and this is out of McAllister, Oklahoma, which from where I'm at is southeast of Tulsa, you could say. I'm a little west of Tulsa, but this was southeast of Tulsa. And McAllister is known for having a very large military ammunitions plant. But out of McAllister, a McAllister mother is clinging to life at a Tulsa hospital following a brutal attack by an unidentified animal that investigators say is unlike anything they've ever seen over 30 years. Alicia Maxey was found severely injured on Sunday morning in a remote yard in Blanco. While the family has initially believed a dog was responsible, the sheer scale of injuries has prompted the Pittsburgh County Sheriff's Office to bring in wildlife experts to solve the mystery of what kind of animal attacked Alicia. So on the news report that you're about to hear, it said that they brought in the Oklahoma Wildlife Department. But here in this printed copy coming out of McAllister, it said wildlife experts. So to me, that's code for possibly anyone other than the Wildlife Department. According to investigators, Alicia had pulled into a driveway to inquire about a farmhand job. Now, she was looking for work. They did say that she was looking for work, and I'm not sure if this was in the town of Blanco. It's not a very big community. I've driven through it many times in going to my brother's property in southeast Oklahoma, as well as to go deer hunting. Blanco is a very small town, so I suspect it was outside of the town of Blanco. She was found roughly an hour later by the homeowner, an EMT, who immediately began life-saving measures until a medical helicopter could arrive. And this is a quote here. "In 38 years, I've never been involved or seen anything to the extent as far as injuries caused by a wild animal," end quote, said Pittsburgh County Sheriff Frankie McClendon. The Sheriff's Office is now working with Oklahoma Wildlife Services to identify the animal. So they do state here the Oklahoma Wildlife Department, but earlier it said wildlife experts. Evidence, including clothing ripped from the victim, has been sent to a lab for DNA testing to determine if the attacker was, in fact, a dog, a bear, or a mountain lion. So they've already isolated it to 3 types of predators. So my point is that if it's not one of these creatures, or the DNA comes back that the blood is unidentified, do you think we're going to know? I think not. From her hospital bed at Ascension St. John, Alicia has been able to provide small details about the moments leading up to the attack. Her sister-in-law, Kelley, said Alicia remembers pulling up to the gate before hearing a deep growl. "Something just pounced on her and knocked her to the ground," said Kelley, her sister-in-law. She said it was dog-like in what she described, but she did not say it was certainly a dog. This is what's puzzling, because if it was a dog, a person would say a dog. But she said the sister-in-law was quoting her sister-in-law here, saying, she says it was dog-like is how she described it, but didn't say it was certainly a dog. That's strange. Alicia has already undergone 4 surgeries to treat extensive wounds to her face, legs, and arms. And the picture they're giving here, if this is her in the hospital, is very troublesome. She's got my brother Laren, who's a physician too. We looked at this, and the extent of bandaging, the layer of bandaging, where, and it's on her forearms and on her legs. What you can say is when you see it on the legs, that's usually where, when you are on the ground, people don't review injuries from dogs, but usually on the forearms, you're standing up, you're fighting off something. And she also has it extensively on her face. It looks like they have a ventilator on her as well. And then when you're on the ground, they usually get your legs. So I'll continue on here. During a brief moment between procedures, Alicia spoke about the physical toll of her recovery. "I'm in too much pain to say anything right now," she stated. The attack has triggered a secondary crisis for the Maxey family. Alicia's husband, Wallace, is currently on transplant for kidney and requires dialysis 3 times a week. With Alicia, the family's sole breadwinner, hospitalization and being hospitalized in their only vehicle impounded following the incident, Wallace has no reliable way to get to his critical treatments located 2 hours away for dialysis. I guess I talked to I reached out to some people in law enforcement. My brother was in law enforcement for years. He's retired. He said that's very typical of what they do after an incident like this, collecting DNA, what happened, things like that. But unfortunately, they need a vehicle. When I first walked in, her husband said, "I saw her. I just broke down and started crying," said Wallace. "I wasn't expecting this." Despite the long road ahead, Wallace remains focused on his wife's character. Alicia is a loving, caring person. It doesn't matter who you are. She will sit there and help you the best she can. The community is now rallying to help the Maxey family cover mounting costs for food, housing, and the fees required to retrieve their impounded vehicle. A GoFundMe has been established to support Alicia's recovery and ensure Wallace can reach his medical appointments. And there is a GoFundMe, which we will put in the link description of this show.
New tonight, a McAllister mom is fighting for her life after a brutal animal attack, leaving her husband and 2 young daughters in a tough position.
Alicia Maxey was found severely injured Sunday morning. On top of that, her husband Wallace is on dialysis and waiting for a kidney transplant. Fox 23's Paige Orr joins us live in studio. Paige, you talked to the family and to investigators.
That's right, guys. Investigators originally thought that a dog was responsible, but the Pittsburgh County Sheriff's Office is now working with wildlife experts to identify the animal. As they search for answers, Alicia's family is struggling to stay afloat without their sole breadwinner and without a vehicle to get Wallace to his life-saving treatments. In a remote yard in Blanco, Oklahoma, Alicia Maxey was ambushed before she could even reach the front door of a home where she was hoping to find work.
She heard a deep growl. She said she could remember this growl. And she turned to run back to the truck, and something just pounced on her and knocked her to the ground. And she says it was dog-like, is what she described, but she didn't say it was certainly a dog.
Alicia was airlifted to Ascension St. John in Tulsa with gruesome injuries to her face, arms, and legs. For her husband, Wallace, the first sight of his wife in the ICU was beyond anything he expected.
Whenever I first walked in here, I wasn't expecting to see this. I was thinking more of like a dog chewed up on her leg or bites on her arm or something. I wasn't expecting this. But when I first walked in and I seen her, I broke down and started crying.
I'm in too much pain to say anything right now.
While Alicia fights through her 4th surgery, Pittsburgh County Sheriff Frankie McClendon says the sheer scale of the attack has prompted a search for answers.
38 years, I've never been involved or seen anything to this extent as far as injuries caused by a wild animal. Our question now is what caused these injuries? We've got the Department of Wildlife. They have actually taken some of the evidence, some of the clothing that was ripped from her, and send it off to one of their labs to see what we can find out if there's any way to identify what type of animal.
The tragedy has left the couple's 6- and 7-year-old daughters in a hard spot. Wallace is currently on the list for a kidney, but since their only car was towed after the attack, he has no way to get to his dialysis appointments 2 hours away. Now, the family faces mounting costs for food and housing while supporting Alicia's recovery.
Alicia, she is a loving, caring person. I mean, if you ever needed help, it doesn't matter who you are, she will sit there and help you the best that she can.
Now the family is hoping the community will return that kindness through a GoFundMe set up to help the Maxeys out as Alicia recovers. Live in studio covering news that matters, Paige Orr, Fox 23 News.
If you would like to help the Maxey family, you can find the link to their GoFundMe in this story on fox23.com.
I have a source that had been down in McAllister, which is north of Blanco, years back in the 70s. And we were talking yesterday. He called me, and his name is Frank. My comeback show was with Frank, but Frank is someone that has traveled kind of far and wide across Oklahoma. He's been all over the state, all over Texas, Kansas, but he knows Oklahoma very, very well. And he told me a very interesting story along the lines of this story. Now, what we don't know is that this lady said it was dog-like, but didn't come out and say it was a dog. And this was directly from her sister-in-law, Kelley. So I'm careful not to just jump out and say what we're all thinking, which is a dogman creature, but it sure falls along those lines. And again, it sounds like this, they didn't say, but it sounds like this was midday, this home that she was going to the gate to open up, or I'm not sure what she was going to do. Most people in Oklahoma have a gate and they're not automated. You go to the gate and you open it up. And sometimes if someone says, yeah, you're welcome, come to my house, just open the gate, the homeowner will allow you just open the gate because there's no automation to it or anything. So I suspect that's what she was doing. But when she got to the gate, she heard this deep growl. And I guess she obviously got knocked down, either trying to go back to her vehicle or something in that interim. And then they found her an hour later and had to Metaflight her out. Okay, I have a recent update for you guys. While I was actually editing this show for this breaking news, I actually made contact with the sister-in-law of the lady that was injured. And her name is Kelley. She texted me back, and I was totally surprised she contacted me. But I told her again that I would put the GoFundMe in the description of my show here. So looks like everything is rolling here. So I'm just going to add this to the show. I'm glad she contacted me before I got through. I wasn't through with the editing. She said, I appreciated her contacting me. She said, I didn't get a chance to talk to her. She was on the road, but she did text me. We were texting back and forth here for about 20 minutes. And this is what her sister-in-law said. She's going through her sister-in-law, Kat, because Alicia is in severe pain and she is sedated, and they still have some surgeries. So I can't even imagine the level of pain this poor lady is in at the hospital. But anyway, her sister-in-law says, what was heard on Fox 23 is about the only information we have so far. I said, well, I would love to help out if you can help answer some questions for me. And she said, I'd love to help until she's able to speak and share her story or the investigation has more information. I'm afraid that is all we have. It certainly leaves a lot of questions and questions for, that are concerning. And I said, I'll go ahead and run the Fox 23 segment. She also continues to say, there's a lot of assumptions here, from the owners covering their own pets to wild animals such as lions, bears, and even local legends. So she's open-minded to anything. It sounds like her sister-in-law is open-minded here. And then I'm trying to be very particular with the words that I use. I said, that's interesting. I wonder if there was anything exotic, any exotic animals in the area, or had been loose or known about. She said, I don't know. Maybe time will tell, but the doctors have stated that the wounds were not consistent with dog bites due to the severity and are not ruled out. I said, that is very intriguing. I said, was she unlocking a gate when she was attacked? What was going on? And she said, Alicia's account was just that, a deep growl, something dog-like. She stated she heard yelling as the attack was happening. So it wasn't her yelling. She heard someone else yelling, which we did not get in the news piece, at something to go away. And my brother said she thought, let me go back here. A deep growl, something like dog-like. She stated that she heard yelling as the attack was happening, as if someone was yelling at something to go away. And my brother said that she thought she heard a gunshot. Then she went unconscious. So far, that was the first thing and the last thing she was able to whisper, as she was currently in so much pain due to facial issues. So she heard someone yelling, and she thinks she heard a gunshot. But that wasn't mentioned in the news stories, as you'll hear. She had barely made it to the gate. So apparently she was going to unlock a gate. And we even thought, and this is the sister-in-law again I'm speaking with, we even thought the possibility that she may have walked upon a black bear, which are common around there, and they are, or possibly a cub with it, or a large coyote, or a dog breed, or even a wolf from someone having a pet wolves or something to that nature. So she's thinking out of the box, like, what could have this have been? The sister-in-law doesn't know at this point in time either. I said, this is so terrible. I'm so sorry to hear. That's a very strange last thing to recall before she passed out. She said, yes, that's the only thing she could remember. It took her a day to remember. It took her a day to recall anything. We do know that she has requested to be around no dogs whatsoever or any big animals when she gets released from the hospital. Well, I imagine not. I mean, this is extremely traumatic. She doesn't want to be around any animals at this point in time. So she's probably going to have some severe PTSD from this. I said, I can understand 1,000%. I said, do you live in Blanco, and have any locals have had anything like this happen in the past or recently? She said, like I said, there's a lot of questions because the police department said that she was found an hour later, which is understandable in the remote area she was in. So it wasn't in town, it was in a remote area outside of town. And Alicia, the injured, is not from Blanco. She's from McAllister. It takes a while for the emergency service or helicopter to reach out to that area. My husband initially thought that possibly someone sicked a dog on her or an animal. They personally, this sounds very horrible to even think about, that someone would do this, but it still cannot be ruled out. It's very shocking. And there's so many scenarios that this could be, and we don't know as of yet. Our minds are racing. Only the people who found her possibly know what it was because of the trauma and and the horribleness of the attack. That was everything. It's the only thing that she can remember or recall. We don't live in the area. They live outside of McAllister, which again, McAllister is north of Blanco. She didn't give me where she lives exactly. I know where she lives, but I won't talk about it right now on this program. I live in another area, and I'm using voice messaging to text you. She will explain everything later, as she went looking for a job that day. They had an opening for a ranch hand job, and that's what she was doing. Apparently, she was opening a gate. And then I said, I see, well, I won't keep you long. I'm so sorry to hear this again. But I do have one last question. I said, and this is how I stated it: has any unusual or strange folks, that's Oklahoma speak, obviously, strange folks have dropped by to talk to your sister-in-law or yourself about this incident? I'm only asking because sometimes, not always, but whenever there is exotic animals that have injured humans, sometimes these people sometimes appear and ask very bizarre questions, and they act strange. So this is why I ask, do you know of anyone like this? Have they shown up? And of course, we know what we're referring to, right? She said, I've had one person message me and asked about a dog man. I didn't say dog man in any of my conversation, by the way. Someone else messaged her. She said, I'll repeat that again. She said, I've had one person message and ask about a dog man, laugh out loud, but you never know. I do know people do also have exotic animals out here they're not supposed to. My sister is in the care facility at ICU and still in Tulsa. I'm sure they won't let anyone but my brother come in and talk to her. And I said, I appreciate it. Thank you for contacting me back. I'll post the GoFundMe. She still has not seen, this sister-in-law still talking, she's still not seen the extent of her facial injuries, but it is very gruesome and bad. She said, thank you very much. I appreciate you getting the story out. They need all the help they can get. And I said that I know a little bit about dog injuries and how animals behave, and I've investigated a few of these, and that was the end of our conversation via text. So I thought it was interesting that she said that her sister did notify that she heard someone yelling prior to the attack and during the attack, and that there was a possible gunshot that went off. That is not in the news segment on Fox 23 News or any other news station, I don't believe. So this is the sister-in-law. We'll find out more what's going on. I'll try to contact to see if I can get a interview with any of the police department. But at this point in time, they've not been contacted by any unusual suits or anybody like that. So we'll stay abreast of what's going on. I wanted to add this to this segment. Again, let me know what you think. I appreciate the sister-in-law getting back with me on this and texting me. So we have the inside scoop on this. And we're going to share that GoFundMe link in the description, as I said. So I wanted to add this to the story because she just literally texted me. I got off like 2 minutes ago. And this is the sister-in-law that has direct contact with Alicia, that is at the Tulsa hospital right now in ICU. So I told her that if she learns anything more, to allow me to keep me abreast of things. And who knows, maybe we might get an inside scoop later on this. Let's go to that interview I had just yesterday with Frank, and some of the things that he said that I had no idea. I learned something about, I wish Frank would have told me sooner, but I learned a little bit more, and I wish I had known, because this was kind of mind-blowing to me. So let's go there now and listen to that interview that I did with Frank yesterday, still revolving around this subject and this lady being injured. Well, I wanted to get right back with you and talk about what you shared with me a moment ago. And this is kind of an impromptu interview, but I think because I've received so many emails here today, just within the last couple of hours that we got back from the city, and you calling me, what you discussed with me and shared with me a little bit when you were down at the ammunitions plant in McAllister some years ago.
Yes.
So, first of all, it's good to talk to you again. It's been a little bit. Go back to when you said you were delivering some ammunition and deer hunting and all that.
I was picking up ammunition. It was in the late 60s, maybe early 70s. I was in the Army, and I took a deuce and a half down to McAllister, down to the ammo depot to pick up some ammunition. And of course, you're escorted in and you're escorted out. You got an escort with you all the time you're in there.
Now, explain what the ammunition. This is outside of McAllister, and this is an area.
It's a big ammunition depot. They make some ammunition down there, and they've got these big bunkers that's built on top of the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many they got, but they got a bunch of them. So anyway, they store ammunition in there.
Okay.
So when we need ammo, we just take a deuce and a half and go down and get a truckload of it, you know. Gotcha. Anyway, we went down and pulled up the gate and gave them our paperwork and stuff, you know. And so we had an escort vehicle, a security guard, and a pickup. And he took us to the bunker and to load up our ammo. And in front of the bunker is a big cement pad where you park on, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the way everything is built up above it, a lot of silt will run down and collect on top of that cement bunker, and it's about 2 inches thick. Just a real fine mud, you know.
Okay.
So anyway, I got out of the truck, went back, dropped the tailgate, and just standing there looking around, and I noticed some monster dog tracks in the mud right there in front of the door. And they was the pad part where the toes and stuff at was a lot bigger than a softball. They was humongous. And they was probably 11 to 12 inches long, and they was skinny back at the heel. Looked like it maybe it just run on its toes most of the time, you know, on the pad.
Okay.
And you could see the claw marks in the mud, and it was real clear. I mean, just looked like he'd just been there. So I asked the security guard, I said, boy, y'all sure got some big dogs down here. And he looked down at the ground, he said, yeah, we have some special trained security dogs. And I said, well, from the looks of the track, they must be awful big. And he said, yeah, the Army trained them and brought them in. And he said they stand about 7 foot tall and go between 350 and 400 pounds. And I said, wow, that's a big dog. And that was the end of that conversation. Then we went to loading ammo and stuff. But anyway, I kind of figured what the tracks was when I'd seen them, because I'd seen dogman tracks before.
So this was you and I, when we were discussing earlier, we thought it was around 1973.
No, I think it was.
You said it was the end of the Vietnam War.
Yeah, it was probably the last year of Vietnam, whenever that was.
I think it was 73 is when they pulled out.
Okay, it might have been 72 or 73.
So that was all the way back then.
Oh, yeah, that was a long time ago.
And how when you were talking to this gentleman, was he dressed in fatigues? I mean, he worked there.
No, he worked there. I said no on the fatigues. It was more like a uniform, but it was military.
It was military.
Yeah.
And how did he behave when you were asking about this dog-like creature? Or when
First he was going to tell me a whole lot, and then for some reason he just shut up.
he backed off?
Yeah.
So he said, after you mentioned the tracks, the prints that you saw, he said that, so it sounds like he had seen them?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can tell the way he was talking that, I can tell the way he was talking that he'd seen them quite a bit. You know, because see that they not only have a 24-hour patrol there, then they got the dog men that patrols the perimeter too. You know, they're probably, I would think that they're probably patrolling the outside of the perimeter fence.
Well, I was going to say that area, those ammunitions, that's on the inside of that compound, and there's
Right.
and there's 40,000 acres down
Yeah.
there, and I've hunted on top of those ammunition. Those
On top of them bunkers.
yes, I've hunted on top of those.
Yeah, I have too. I used to draw in on an archery tag down there on an archery hunt,
Yes,
and they would load you up in a pickup. They'd give you a map, and you had a certain area where you could hunt, and you couldn't hunt nowhere else. They'll take you to your area, drop you off, and then come back and pick you up later.
yes, it's very, very strict.
Oh yeah, they give you strict warning: do not leave your area, no matter what. Do not leave it.
Yeah, you can't just change and go somewhere else.
Oh no, you can't just walk across the road to the other good spot. You know.
Right. Now, we're bringing all this up because you notified me today about the young lady that was in the hospital, that you were notified by a family member through Facebook that she contacted you, a family member contacted you about this lady that was attacked by this animal, this dog-like canine, I guess, at this point in time. We're still kind of unsure. And then you were saying that this was outside of Blanco.
Yeah, it's only like 13 miles from Blanco to
McAllister.
ammunition dump there right outside of Savannah,
Okay.
which is just like a mile out of McAllister.
Mile out of McAllister. Yeah. And I got online, and I go through Blanco to get down to Clayton sometimes, and through Honobbe on southeast Oklahoma. And I've been through there. There's not much of a town, as many of those, little towns are all across the state, but it's not that far. It's like a little over 13 miles to Blanco and from that ammunitions plant. And then you brought up the story of what you saw and spoke with that gentleman there back in 73 at the ammunitions plant.
Yes, and I don't know how long the dog men had been in there. They might have been in there maybe 4 or 5. I kind of figured, just my guess, and I figured that he was probably in there from about the start of the Vietnam War.
Well, I'm still curious about what he said again. He said that this is something that the government had, or that they've trained these creatures, or how did he say it again?
He said that they had trained them.
They had trained them. Did he say where they came from?
Nope. He just said the Army brought them in.
The Army brought them in.
Yeah.
And they were 350 to 400 pounds?
Yeah.
And they obviously stood up, or he would know.
Yeah, he said standing up, so he'd seen them standing. He'd seen them bipedally. So he said 350, 400 pounds, 7 foot tall. So that means he'd had to have seen them. There was too many tracks in front of that door. I wish we'd have went to some other bunkers, but we didn't. I was picking up, at that time I was picking up cases of .105 recoilless anti-tank rounds. Was what I was picking up.
So were you a civilian that had like a contract with them, or were you attached to an Army unit, or
No, I was in the Army.
Okay, gotcha. And so you were just in transport. You were taking them to another facility.
Yeah, I was taking them to Fort Chaffee, Arkansas.
Okay. Was there anyone with you at the time?
Yes, there was a sergeant and a lieutenant. Anytime you haul an ammunition like that, as a rule back in, you had an escort.
Okay.
And the lieutenant, he would be in the lead in the Jeep, and they'd take care of the paperwork and stuff. I was just a truck driver.
Did they see
That's all I was doing that day, was driving a truck.
Okay.
But I was also a gunner. I drove a Jeep with a .105 recoilless rifle mounted on it. And I was the gunner on it.
Okay. When you saw the prints, aside from the person that works there at the ammunitions place, did any of the people that traveled with you, did they see the prints? The tracks?
I don't know. I'm sure they did, because the lieutenant was sitting in a Jeep going through paperwork. If they looked down, they'd had to have seen them, but they probably just thought it was big dog prints, and being way out there in the country like that, it's, they could be wolves in there or anything, but they got that place under chain link fence, so.
Oh yeah, it's there's some deep parts. What gets me, I guess my question is, if these creatures are on the inside perimeter where those bunkers are, and you have hunters that get drawn out, won't some of these hunters ever come in contact with these dogmen?
I would think so. But again, if you remember when you hunted down there,
yeah,
and I hunted down there was sections of it was off limits.
Yes, there was a place
we couldn't enter, we couldn't hunt.
Yes, I remember that.
I think it might have been where the concentration of dogmen might have been.
Oh. Yeah, I remember they said that no one's allowed in these certain areas. There was one area that we were in we went in bear trap.
Yeah.
And there were some other areas they said were off limits.
Yeah.
Didn't say why.
Right. They don't tell you why. They just tell you it's off limits.
But that's an interesting conversation. And the guy that you were speaking to, he was employed there. He was in the military.
Right.
And he just spoke matter-of-factly about that the government brought him in as a guard dog.
Right. Special trained guard dog.
A special trained guard dog.
Yes.
Interesting. I'd never heard of that.
I have.
So now it really throws kind of a interesting wrench in things. This lady.
Yeah, you can bet all of the military bases in the United States, they got dogmen guarding them. There's been too many sightings around all of the military bases, even the ones that's close into town, but there've been a lot of dogman sightings around all of the military bases.
Well, it sounds like then, if that's the case, that they were just initially assigned through military installations, that something happened where they got loose or to that nature.
Yeah, well, you can only control them to a certain extent. You can train them, but they still got their own mind. You know?
And that's the thing, is that based on a multitude of encounters, They
Right.
seem to think their way out of things
Yeah.
very, very well.
Yeah. Yeah. Most usually, the dog men that the government are using will most usually have a handler. And he'll handle 12, 13 of them at a time. But you can turn them loose on them, but to do a mission, and if they come back, maybe half of them will come back. The other half is going to stay. They're just going to go rogue. And that's ones you got to worry about.
So how do you know how many a handler can have?
I had a friend of mine that was of course, I was in the Army, and we had a lot of guys come back, from Vietnam,
Yeah.
and they was talking about the Army had brought in dog men that had been trained here in the United States, and they took them to Vietnam and used them for tunnel rats.
Really?
They'd turn them loose in the tunnels.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
That would be scarier than hell to face one of those things in the tunnel, a dark tunnel. Oh, my God.
He was telling me, I don't know how much there was to it, but he was telling me that they'd turn loose. I don't know whether they'd seen it, heard it, or what, but he was just telling me that they had turned loose 2 dog men in one tunnel. And the dog men come out like 6 hours later. The Army went in, and there was over 250 dead.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, they had an underground hospital in there and all kinds of stuff. And they killed every single person. 2 of them. 250 people in 6 hours.
How come that we've not, I mean, I can kind of see it. I'm kind of answering my own question here, but how can something like that be done in Vietnam and never spoken about in articles or anything like that? I mean, was this such a high-level black operation that no one dared talk about it? It's not really in print anywhere?
Yeah, if you're military and you talk about it, you're going to get court-martialed and wind up in prison, So that's worth keeping your mouth shut,
So this is just one of those secret operations that you conduct that is kind of like a beta test. And
yeah.
I can't even imagine the handler, how they handle those creatures then.
Yeah, I wouldn't want the job.
Yeah, how do you handle something that is bigger than you, that you need to behave like the alpha male for it to really, listen to your commands?
Yeah. Well, they train them. What they done, they just got wild ones and captured them and went to breeding them. And the young ones, they would train the young ones. And all of them at the Army, I say Army, the government, has trained, they put chips in them. And they can read these chips a long ways off. They can sit down on a computer right now and pull it up and tell you where, I don't know how many thousand of them they got out there, but they can tell you where they're at and what they're doing.
Well, that brings up so many questions. We initially got on here because this poor lady got terribly, or severely injured. And she's in a hospital in Tulsa right now, I guess. And she was found an hour later by the homeowner. She was going to a home. The way the story is, this lady was going to a home to see if she could get work. And so she pulled up at this house, and based on the story, she went to a gate. Like she got out of her vehicle and went to a gate, I guess, either to open the gate or to, yell from the gate. I don't know. It doesn't go that far in the news article. And then she heard a deep growl, and I guess she ran back to her vehicle or went to her vehicle, or it didn't say run or whatever, but anyway, she was knocked down, she said, by a dog-like something.
There's a lot of wild dog men out there that the government doesn't have any control over. And that is a lot of times the one that goes rogue. But what the deal is, a lot of times they'll pair up. There'll be a male that's got a chip and a female that don't, so then they'll have pups. But at least they got a general idea,
Interesting. Yeah, I never thought about that because, that incident was over 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And how many generations, what's the gestation period of these creatures? How long do they live? What's the turnaround? Yeah. How many pups can they have at once?
Yeah.
We don't know these. I mean, someone knows, but the civilian population doesn't. Everything is completely devoid. The population, the civilian public, we don't know this stuff, so to speak. So us talking about it, we're just a very small percentage of people that do know, but there's still a lot of unknown questions we have about things that we just now, asked. Gestation period, how many pups do they have? Do they have kind of routes they take during certain times of the year? What and why? What's the purpose? Like a migration pattern or route. I know wolves in the wild can roam hundreds of miles.
Oh yeah,
hundreds of miles. But you just wonder what happened to this poor lady.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it was the entrance to the property. Okay. A gate. I'm wondering if there wasn't a trash can sitting there.
True. And that it was behind the trash can. And
yeah, he was in there, been raiding that trash can.
You wonder, because you think if she, I assume, it doesn't say, but I assume it was during the day.
Yeah.
It doesn't say what time of day she was found. But I just assumed it was during the day since she was found an hour later. Now, I don't know that for a fact, but if that was so, how come she didn't see this creature? Most people aren't paying attention anyway, so I get it. But I wonder if there was a lot of foliage where you can't see. Was it thick? Was there
you need to drive by there and check it out. Look for a garbage can while you're there.
Yeah, I wonder, I need to find out where this occurred. And they didn't say, they just said that the homeowner was an EMT. And I take it that it wasn't in town, but it was outside of town.
Well, if you get down there and you get to talking with the locals, I'm sure some of them can tell you right exactly where it was at. That's a small town.
Yeah, I'd like to go down there and kind of kick around a little bit to say, hey, do you know the lady that was injured down here? Could you tell me a little bit where that place is at? And has that, and here's the thing. Was that the first time this has happened, or has there been other people injured that were minor injuries?
That's right.
Did this happen?
Plus other sightings.
Yeah, has there been sightings in this area? And this is one that maybe got out because of her injuries, severity of injuries. Maybe there was other people. So Wiley Dave and I are going to try to go down to Blanco to see what's going on and see if I can get a hold of some of these people and see if I can question. Because honestly, if it was one of these creatures, dogman type creatures, we'll never hear it. We'll never hear about it as the general public. We just won't. All right, guys, I wanted to kind of follow up here after listening to what Frank had to say. I admit, I've spoken to Frank several times, and he was in my show opener on my comeback show back in 2024 in December. But Frank is a guy that has been around the state and he's a man of many parts. And he's done a lot of things in his life, and his dad has too. So I really value his opinion. And I was really kind of shocked and taken back what he said regarding that military installation. I have actually been to that military installation twice, and it's a special place because you have to be drawn out by the Oklahoma Wildlife Department. They manage it, but who owns the facility is the United States government. And like you heard, they make various ammunitions there and have for years, and these bunkers have dirt and sod and trees on them. And I used to hunt on top of those bunkers because it's a great vantage point to look out for deer. And there are railroad tracks in front of these ammunitions. It's kind of like a miniaturized railroad track, not a full railroad, but it's kind of like a miniature railroad track, like it's a special cars and maybe a special type of train system that runs something on these railroad, and it's just out in the middle of the woods. You wouldn't know it. It's just bizarre. And there's 40,000 acres in this military installation, so you literally feel you're by yourself out there. You don't get to roam around freely, so if you get drawn out, you have someone follow you typically, and they're very strict. You cannot have a sidearm. It's only bow, which means it's bow and arrow. No shotguns, no pistols. In fact, they can pull you over at any point during the week of your hunt, and if you have anything like a shotgun shell in your car or any ammo, even if you don't have the firearm with you, you may be asked to leave and never come back. They are that strict. That year also, they didn't allow us to have glass. No glass products because it could start a fire. So they're very strict on that. So I've been twice, but it's kind of unnerving to hear that, and that these creatures may be in that installation area. I mean, I never in a million years would have even thought that. So this was new that Frank told me about this military personnel telling him that they have guard dogs, and that they weigh 350 to 450 pounds, and they stand about 7 feet tall. And then he kind of got quiet. My mind was blown there for a second. I was trying to it was just racing. This kind of coincides with this current story because that ammunitions plant is not in McAllister. It's outside of McAllister. But Blanco is not that far. It's a dot of a town. I do go through it going to southeast Oklahoma. I've been through it several times, more than several times, a dozen times. And it's a very small community. I just thought it was interesting that Frank called me and wanted to tell me that story and said that he fully believed that it was a dogman creature, just by her description and the extent of injuries. So, in closing here, guys, let me know if you like this segment. Share, like, comment, subscribe, and we're going to go down there and find out what's going on. In the meantime, have a way to protect yourself all the time. And if someone that you love is going out and they don't have all the gear they need, tell them. You're the person that knows a lot more. Trust me, you guys watching these shows know more than about 99.9% of the population. And I'm serious. You do know more. You know what else is out there. I'll put it that way. So help someone out, and you don't need to frighten them. Just help them plan better, you could say. So in the meantime, we're going to go down there and see what we can get some interviews, find out more into this story, what else is going on. And always remember, guys, we are never alone when in the wilderness. Therefore, always watch your back and always protect yourself. God bless, and we'll talk soon.